Fantasy hockey gold mines don't come as juicy as the Montreal Canadiens young core, and we'll talk all about their top 5 on our latest episode. And get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
With the NHL free agency window now in the rear view, we'll return to our league-wide breakdown of every single club's top 5 fantasy targets on the episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Shout out to the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. Right now in the summertime, episodes will be dropping down, but we are here all summer long so that you committed GMs can get a leg up on the competition. Come September, Steele, it's the Montreal Canadiens, baby. Top 5 fantasy targets, and this was tough for me in a good way. So many good names here, intriguing, young, some fill out the peripherals, some on the rise. I'm excited to get to this list because now that Noah Dobson is a part of it, clearly, this team is even juicier. And before I turn it over to you, I just got to bring up this stat that I saw just the other day. Montreal core under 25 years or under, Suzuki, Dobson, Caufield, Lane Hutson, Demidov, Slafkovsky, Gooley, Struble, Reinbacher, and now Bolduc. Who's in your top 5? Because there's a whole bunch of honorable mentions that I still see a ton of value in as well. Mute's got you again, pal.
Mute's got me again, but a new bombshell has entered the villa. Montreal Canadiens have entered the chat. They are an absolute goldmine juggernaut waiting for the taking. There's so much juicy players that you want for your fantasy hockey team. And like you said, honorable mentions go out to Zach Bolduc, Sam Montembeault, who was originally in my top 5, but makes it to the honorable mention list now. Patrick Laine, who I think if he is healthy and can stay healthy, still brings that goal-scoring touch, the size, the tenacity, as well as the absolute dangles and mitts that he has with him as well. Mike Matheson, my boy, I think he's an absolute stud out there. All 4 of those guys make the honorable mentions. This is where I want, this conversation to start because I am still struggling with who to put at number 5. Currently, I have Juraj Slafkovsky.
Me too.
But I'm struggling between Ivan Demidov and Slafkovsky at this number 5 position.
Fair.
And for me, it really comes down to who's playing on the top line with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caufield. Who will solidify themselves on that first line, because I still think that second line is going to be very good with Patrick Laine, Kirby Dach, and whoever is on that right-hand side. But Slafkovsky, for me, comes in at number 5. Career year for him. Again, a first-round, first overall pick just a few seasons ago in 2022. Career year, 51 points in 79 games. Career high in hits. 194 hits, which I love. He's bringing that physical aspect to his game as well. Yes, over 130 plus shots the last 2 years, a +4, which is up dramatically from the -19 he was 2 seasons ago. He's still 21 years old, but you can't deny what Ivan Demidov also brings to the table. 49 points in 65 games in the KHL with the St. Petersburg SKA. So those 2 guys, again, it's almost 5A, 5B for me. And this is why they're such an absolute goldmine, an absolute fantasy juggernaut of a team going into this season. But I like the physical aspect of what Slafkovsky has brought to the table, especially for those Banger League beauties out there. The categorical formats that you and I play. If you're going in a keeper league, it's clearly Ivan Demidov. He's probably the longer, clear-cut guy that you want on your team. But for me, Slafkovsky has found a way over the last 2 seasons to really jump into this category for the Montreal Canadiens.
And I like that you mentioned a couple of those statistics that are really starting to show steady improvement in this kid's game. And you know how much we like on this podcast, Steele, a good power forward in the fantasy game, especially in the leagues that you and I like to run in. And Juraj Slafkovsky's starting to really project himself as a prototypical power forward. Does he have as much snarl as some of the guys we like in Tom Wilson, Evander Kane and others? Perhaps not, but perhaps that doesn't matter if he is going to be smarter and just as or more effective at the offensive end, because I love this guy's offensive upside. And let me hit you with why Demidov comes in at honorable mention or 5B or just outside the top 5 is, yes, you're right. The future might be higher and the ceiling might be higher with Demidov, and he might be more of a sexy name because of all of the hype that he had coming into the NHL, and then he played pretty well in the postseason. I'm going to go with the safer play. I'm going to go with a player that I am pretty confident in continuing to cover those peripherals, where there's a lot to like about what's going on in Montreal Steel, but there is also a lot of defensive liability in some of these young players' games. Cole Caufield, Demidov for sure, and that could, in terms of Demidov anyway, could eat into his minutes, and therefore it's a little bit riskier. So I'm with you. Slafkovsky at 5, and this is where I think you and I are going to differ slightly, because I'm just buying into Lane Hutson big time. And this is nothing about a knock on Noah Dobson, because I'm not going to fault you if you have him higher up on this list. I just see the top power play unit as Lane Hutson's. I see the minutes as the number one D-man on this team to be Lane Hutson's. Could it still be more of a mix? Could Noah Dobson come in here and return to 70 points, which he has done in his career only a couple of years ago? Sure. But what I'm trying to say I see the ceiling even higher with Lane Hutson. So Noah Dobson, a very quality blue liner with a change of scenery, could be huge. He comes in at 4 for me, but I'm not going to fault you if he's higher on the list for you.
No, he comes in at 4 on the list for me as well. And he could be higher. I look, there is a reason the Montreal Canadiens traded for Noah Dobson. There is a reason they gave him 8 years, 9.5 million AAV every single year. They believe in this guy, a right shot defenseman who is 6'4", who's only 200 pounds. If he can put on a couple more pounds muscle wise and fill out a little bit, that's going to be more lethal for his game as well. So
true.
Look, there's a lot of caveats with it. There's a lot of differences with both Hutson and Dobson, size wise, physical aspect wise, and again, how they play the game defensively, moving the puck up. They're both playmakers. Lane Hutson has a little bit more skill set with his edge work, with his playmaking in the offensive zone. Noah Dobson is a goal scorer as a D-man as well. That's 4 straight seasons now of 10 plus goals for Noah Dobson. But he comes into a situation where he has skilled players up front that he can depend on and rely on to actually put the puck in the back of the net on a nightly basis. The New York Islanders are one of the worst teams in goals for the last few seasons, actually for a very long time. But the last few seasons, it's been very abysmal for the New York Islanders. They bring in Noah Dobson for a clear-cut reason. Size, playmaking ability, goal scoring on the back end. And to me, it's not as clear-cut Lane Hutson's power play. I think both guys are going to be on it. It's very rare now in the NHL to see 2 defensemen on a power play. I think you're going to see the first power play unit of Nick Suzuki, Cole Caufield, either Juraj Slafkovsky or Demidov, and then Noah Dobson and Lane Hutson running it on the back end. So I don't think it's so clear-cut as you may think, but even then, both Lane Hutson and Noah Dobson are going to be getting over 22, 23 minutes of average ice time. For me, it also comes down to Noah Dobson has been in the league so much longer. He has the NHL experience under his belt, which Lane Hutson only has the 1 year under his belt right now. So Noah Dobson, he's 25, 26 years old. He's just really getting into his prime. We're still going to see a lot of mistakes from Lane Hutson on the back end, again, size-wise, but Noah Dobson, over 125 blocks the last 2 seasons, actually a career high 180 2 seasons ago. He's still going to get those hits, 50 to 60 to 70 hits. I still think Noah Dobson can put up 50 to 60 points. I think 65 on the high end, but I actually think the ceiling is even higher with all the skill sets surrounded now in Montreal for Dobson.
There's some angles that we need to continue to cover after the break, because I got to throw a little bit of cold water on this situation just a little bit quickly, Steele. No, I'm not. I'm kidding. It's far too exciting what's going on here in Montreal. As a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, I'm a little bit upset, but the needle is pointed back in the right direction in a very big way in Montreal, and now it's for real. However, you and I have spoken about this. there are a lot of good young teams on the rise in the Eastern Conference, and especially in that division in the Atlantic that we talk about the most. So let's talk about them more after the break. Top 3 fantasy pieces on the Montreal Canadiens for the upcoming season. We got our NHL-wide breakdown of every single team. Continue to roll out the rest of the week. Make sure you guys tap in. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Summer sports are in full swing, baby. And whether you're about that baseball under the lights, golf on the greens like we are here on this show, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling and spicy with FanDuel, where you get in on the game with your friends who are out getting sunburn at the beach? You don't need that aloe. You need that green in your pocket, baby. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers that bet $5 and win get $150 back in bonus bets. Open the FanDuel app today or visit them at FanDuel.com to get started with our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash and subscribe the follow button as well. We appreciate you out there. We love you out there. Leave that 5-star review for your boys here, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden. Look, for me, again, it kind of goes tooth and nail with these two guys. It's really 4A or 3A, 3B, 4A, 4B, whatever it is. Because when you look at their playoff or their Yahoo rankings, Lane Hutson was pre-ranked 66th in the league. He finished 151st. Noah Dobson was actually ranked 231st and finished 165th. So they finished within 14 spots of each other. And that's why it really is interchangeable with those two guys. I did, however, go with Lane Hutson at the number 3 position. I just think the playmaking ability, his skating work, his skating ability as well is what puts him above Noah Dobson. But again, you could go either way because Noah Dobson has that experience over him. He has that goal scoring touch as well. Again, I don't think it's as clear-cut Lane Hutson's power play as it could be maybe Noah Dobson's power play. These two are absolute studs. And again, you could go either way and drafting them. I just think with Lane Hutson, the size is a huge factor in why he might drop instead of Noah Dobson. Only 91 shots last year, only 40 hits. He actually did have 123 blocks, which is up there with Noah Dobson as well. It will really come down to power play time, but I see both of them on it. That's why they're really close for me.
And let me hit you with a couple of stats here. Last year, Steele, in terms of shots on goal per game, this team finished 30th in the NHL at just over 25 shots on net per game. That number has got to go up, especially when we now have seen what they have done in augmenting this forward group with the support of a player on the back end like Noah Dobson. I think that's also could mean huge things for Sam Montembeault also in terms of just streamers and like maybe not honorable mention, but other pieces that could hold value on this team. Don't forget about what Dobish was able to do at certain points last season. And yes, it's Montembeault's crease most definitely, but I think a lot of this team's success is going to rely on the ability of that duo to hold it down. This is still a very young group. If they start letting muffins in with regularity at times, the confidence could be an issue. And that's where, I got to say it, we separate all of this fantasy hype, which is for sure real, and buy into it 100%. But from what this immediately means for what the Habs do in the standings, because there are still some really good teams that they have to climb. And just because you throw a whole bunch of 24 and 25-year-olds in there doesn't mean a cup is in the rafters the next season. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We have the same list. I fully thought we were going to have a different list because I assume number 1 and 2 are the same. I'm with you. Lane Hutson comes in at number 3. Exciting young player. Quickly, before I throw it back over to you for number 2, I keep bringing up this updated fantasy 200 list on NHL.com. They just redid it 5 days ago. In terms of Canadiens, Steel, there are 9 of them. On this top 100 list, Nick Suzuki comes in at 27. Cole Caufield at 46. Lane Hutson at 58, and then exactly what you said. We're almost splitting hairs here. Slafkovsky, 110. Demidov, 112. Dobson, 114. So there is so much to be excited about. I would just say, from the old standings and betting side of things, perhaps don't get too excited. It might be another year on top, but they are here in terms of a fantasy goldmine, Steel. There's no doubts about that.
Yeah, they really are. And we do have the same list. Cole Caufield comes in at number 2 on the Montreal Canadiens top 5 targets going into next season. And look, this guy is, I don't know exactly where you would put him, but I looking at where he was pre-ranked and where he finished, he was ranked by Yahoo 51st. He finished the season 49th. I think he is a late 3rd round draft pick, early 4th round draft pick, right there in that sweet spot.
Good. Yep.
4th round does sound good. But he's established. Cole Caufield is a superstar in this league, but he has established himself as maybe one of the best goal scorers in the league now. He's put up over 25 plus goals the last 3 seasons, career high 37 goals this last year, career high 70 points as well. He's getting over 18, 19 minutes of average ice time, over, anywhere between, actually, he had a very significant drop in shots on goal, went from 314 down to 239. But maybe that's also what has contributed to his goal scoring ability, because when you actually look at his shooting percentage, maybe he's picking his moments better. Maybe he's picking those opportunities. That decision making in the offensive zone with the puck on his stick is a lot better, because he went from an 8.9 shooting percentage back up to a 15.5 shooting percentage just from that significant drop in shots on net. So that's a factor as well. The blocks and hits, that's just a bonus with whatever you get. 17 power play points. I think we're going to see that dramatically go up as well this next season as this skill set, as the power play gets developed, the chemistry starts to form between all these new guys and current guys on the team. Cole Caufield, he's an early 4th round draft pick, in my opinion. I think he could easily put up 75, 80 points this next season.
I totally agree. And there's a couple of things that I just need to get off the chest first. Number one, the front office in Montreal has done an excellent job of recognizing the pieces that they have and how to get the most out of them by adding the pieces around them that they need to succeed. And what I'm getting at here with Cole Caufield is when I see the addition of Noah Dobson, a guy who sees the ice very well, a guy coming in with the creative and offensive flair that Ivan Demidov has and can really stretch the ice out. This could mean really huge things for a full season with all of these players in the mix for Cole Caufield, because, Steele, 37 goals. You and I spoke about this player very early on when we started doing this show, and I think I was overly high on him, and maybe you brought me down to earth, and maybe we were somewhere in the middle. He's got 40 goals, man, written all over him. And he has what most goal scorers need, and you can't teach it. He knows where to be. He's in the net. He's in the areas where you want to be a goal scorer and see them, and he's got puck luck. And all of those things aren't always tangible, but with this kid, I see 40-plus goals coming in red hot, and there aren't too many of those players around the NHL, Steele. So I think that guy right there is someone to double circle this year for a true breakout type season where you put him on notice in terms of an elite goal scoring option in the fantasy game.
100%. That is getting triple circled going into the fantasy hockey draft. I think the same as this player as well. We're going to talk about Nick Suzuki and why he comes in ahead of Caufield and number 1 on our list for top 5 targets of the Montreal Canadiens. All of that and more coming up next. You also want to stay tuned in all week long as we break down the top 15 teams left in the National Hockey League, breaking down the top 5 targets. Again, we're going to have to get back to the Florida Panthers because they won the Stanley Cup. They will be the last team, but we're not sick of them yet. We're not sick whatsoever, but Nick Suzuki coming up after the break. Once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. We appreciate you out there. We love you out there. Continue to share with your friends and family. Hit the subscribe button, the follow button. Leave a 5-star review. We love all the support we've been getting throughout the offseason, throughout the summertime. We know it's, you want to be enjoying the weather out there. We're finally getting some summer weather here in Ontario up north. It's been great this last couple of weeks. It's also been great for the Montreal Canadiens so far this summer. Yes, a lot of moving pieces. They bring in Dobson. They bring in Bolduc. They re-sign Dobish as well, who was very outstanding last year. But Nick Suzuki, what an absolute gem in the rough this last season. He was pre-ranked 53rd in the league. He finished top 20 on Yahoo in our leagues, and that's of course in our leagues. But the surprising thing for me with this player is where he was getting drafted on average this last season, and where again Yahoo had him. He was getting drafted on average 50th, 0.2. So right there in that early fifth round is where he was getting drafted on average.
The steal.
It's an absolute steal.
Yep.
It's an absolute steal, pun intended from both of us.
Hey-o.
And I think that might actually is going to continue. I think people actually might rate Cole Caufield higher than him. And maybe it's just because the name isn't, jumping off the page right now. It's going to be, it should be. But in my humble opinion, once again, this is a top 10 centerman in the fantasy hockey league.
I agree.
Again, he finished top 10 in that position for centerman in fantasy Yahoo rankings. He should be getting drafted. Again, he should probably be getting drafted somewhere in that second to third round, but he's going to drop because right now the name doesn't jump off the page. It doesn't jump off the page like a Jack Eichel. It doesn't jump off the page as a Matthew Tkachuk or a Sam Reinhart right now, but it should be because he had an absolute year on him, career year, 30 goals, 89 points. And this is what I love about this player right now, because over the last 4 seasons, he's dramatically improved his offensive game. 61 points, 66 points, 77. Like I just said, career high 89 points, but he's also doing it on both ends of the ice now. For the first 5 years he's been in the National Hockey League, he's always been a negative plus-minus player. He went from minus 14 to plus 19 this past season. And he was actually, over the last 3 years, tied for 13th in Selke voting. He was 9th in Hart voting. He was 5th in Lady Bing voting. This guy's game is a full 200-foot player. You talked about Cole Caufield, Ivan Demidov still learning, still developing that defensive part of their game. Nick Suzuki is there. There's a reason he's the captain of this team.
Yes,
but
sir.
The thing I love most about him, he hasn't missed a single game in the last 5 years. He is healthy as a horse.
Yes.
He's an absolute dog out there. He's one of the best centermen in the league. 52% over the last 2 seasons in the circle. He's getting over 20 minutes of average ice time. Over to you, my friend. Let's continue to pump the tires of Nick Suzuki.
And that means he's fantasy reliable, and you can go to the bank with that. And back to the list of the top, according to NHL.com anyway, the top forwards in the game steal. He slots in at 21st ranked, right behind Braden Point, Mitch Marner, Mark Scheifele, Matthew Tkachuk, and Alex Ovechkin. So when you think about the shine and the attention that you were kind of alluding to that Nick Suzuki doesn't get, and you talk about some of those really big names that are right there ahead of him, it's time to put a little bit more respect on this man's name. And we know in dedicated fantasy circles, because some people out there are going to be like, guys, we've been pumping his tires too. And in Montreal, for sure. But in the more relaxed circles, you're so right, Steele. It's not a sexy name. Maybe he gets a little hate from the East Coast market because he is in Montreal. If you're an Ottawa or a Toronto fan, maybe you don't want to go after him. That's a mistake. Because not only is this team improving overall, the offense is starting to really pick back up after a couple of years of them really struggling. Last year, they finished right in the middle of the pack, 15th in goals scored. I believe, let me just bring it up here, the power play was a little bit worse, but same thing. It's improved year over year, and I think the big step is coming. Maybe not this year, but maybe it's next year, but the fantasy value is bubbling. It's about to pop off. We also had to say a couple of years ago that I was a year or two early on getting Suzuki because he was getting drafted pretty high in certain leagues, ready for that step. The step has been made. He's here still. He brings you some peripheral love as well. The reliability, 80-plus points. He becomes an elite fantasy option along with a number of others. Let me just finish with this, though. Zach Bolduc. Put him in the sleeper realm. Put him in under the radar, whatever you want. I love that Zach Bolduc addition. Not going to write off Mayu in any sense of the imagination, but the Montreal Canadiens made a nice little piece of business go down in the last couple of weeks here. They were winners in our winners and losers, and they're looking like they might be real winners in the standings too. Back on mute, baby.
Oh, wow. This is 3 times now this week.
Okay,
Don't worry.
we're rusty.
I'll figure it out. But
We're rusty.
what I was saying when you couldn't hear me there is that this Atlantic division just keeps getting tougher and tougher. And the Montreal Canadiens are making themselves known. Look, the Ottawa Senators made the playoffs. The Montreal Canadiens made the playoffs. The Red Wings just missed out. This division is tough as nails.
Tampa, Florida,
I don't know what's going on with
Holy.
Buffalo, but they got a lot of work to do if they want to even compete with these other teams in the Atlantic and even their conference.
Yep.
We're going to be getting it all week long. Top 5 targets coming up all week for the top 15 teams remaining in the National Hockey League. Stay tuned in for tomorrow's episode. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen. Once again, your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL Podcast Network. They continue and always have done amazing things content-wise, just like we do here on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod. We appreciate you out there. Good luck with all your summer bets. We're getting after it with the PGA Tours still, so those summer bets are rocking, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.